Hi, I'm Myron from Mushin Mixed Martial Arts, and this is Colin Murray, also from Mushin. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit about blocking. It's a subject that I've been asked a lot about, and it's something that a lot of beginners seem to have some problems with. And that can happen from a lot of different origins, like a lot of people who have trained in traditional martial arts maybe, or just straight up boxing or whatever. Sometimes the way blocking is presented is a little misleading, I think. And the way I teach blocking, I'm going to talk about today. I have what I call a blocking theory when I'm using sparring or doing whatever. Now, the first thing I have to talk about blocking is very dependent on the kind of gear you're wearing and the set of rules that you're fighting on. Blocking in self-defense is very different than blocking that's in a sport competition or boxing, or even boxing or kickboxing to MMA, where the gloves shift in sizes, is kind of different. But what I'm going to talk about today is something that's sort of universal that can be applied across the board. Normally, when people are first taught to block in martial arts, they're taught to block whatever limb is coming at them. They're taught to reach out and stop that from happening. So if Colin is throwing some kind of punch, I would be taught to block that punch from whichever angle it may be coming from. Maybe throws it again, it's an upward kind of way, or a sideways kind of way, or maybe even like this. But in any case, they're taught to reach out and block it. Let's say if it's coming as a right hand, maybe they're taught to block it over here, or they're taught to block it in some other way. But the thing is that it requires them to perform a complex motor skill against something that's already in action. When his punch goes into action, for me to kick in with a complex motor skill and have to pull off something like this, I'm probably not going to be fast enough to do that. And we've talked about startle flinch theory in the past, especially when we talk about our self-defense. But if the person is already in action and you're trying to perform a block specifically for the punch that he's throwing, you're probably not going to, it's not going to happen like that. So my blocking theory, it changes that a little bit. It's really a mental shift. Instead of trying to block the limb that's coming at you, what I want you to start thinking about is covering his target. So if I think about it in terms of, I know he's going to throw this straight right hand to my head as he goes to throw it, that's what he wants to do, right? So again, I'm not trying to specifically block what he's throwing with any kind of martial arts block. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to cover my head. So when I see this flash of motion, I cover my head. By doing that, my face and my head, my command center, is behind a wall of my forearms, biceps, triceps, and it's not going to get through. Now, Colin could throw that very, very hard, and what will happen is, as long as I come up to here, it's not going to get through. So Colin, throw it hard. You can see that what happened was, from here, I'm turned away from it, and of course I'm going to come back in and counter, but at the same time, if I just have to think about, oh crap, cover my head, it's a whole lot different than if I'm trying to specifically block each and everything. The same block that I just did can actually happen with, say he throws a jab. Same thing. He throws it right hand. Same thing, right? So, key points being, my lead comes up, my inside forearm covers the side of my head and presses. More on this in a second. Presses, my elbow sort of points out, and my other hand stays up. I don't want to try to block like this with my other hand down because I'm probably going to get hit with something next, right? So when I block, I generally do two things. I cover the target and move in. So if he throws, I cover the target and move in. By moving in, I stop him from catching up with several punches as far as a combo. The worst thing that I could do when I block is to move straight back. If Colin throws this, even if I block properly and now I start to go straight back, now he's gained momentum and now he's coming into me to where he can then catch up and start throwing punches and kicks, and now I'm behind the curve. But if I step up, say he throws a jab, and I step up, now I'm the one that's ahead of the curve, and my momentum is overcoming that one singular strike, and now I can start working with other things. This can also be really good to initiate a clinch if I'm trying to take him down. Now, let's talk about the pressure on the head, what I was talking about that. If you understand what happens when you get knocked unconscious, all it really is the electrical impulses that flow up and down your spine and interact into your brain and out through your nervous system. If Colin hits me and catches, say, my chin, and it knocks my head offline for a second, those electrical impulses are knocked offline. So that pause in that neurophysiology, I guess is the right word, I'm not a scientist, but at the same time, when that is interrupted, that's what causes momentary unconsciousness, or you might have heard of it as a flash knockout. The other thing that happens is if, say, he catches my head squarely, maybe against like the temple or something like that, my brain crashes against the sides of my skull, causing the same kind of electrical interference. So in a lot of ways, when I get knocked unconscious, it's like having to reboot a computer. And so I'll get knocked out, I fall, and then he can do whatever he wants to me, and it could be a serious injury. Now, the way I'm going to stop that from happening is by pressing on the side of the head and combining that with the concept that I talked about before about covering the target. So when I press the side of my skull, if Colin throws slow, you'll see he impacts this, but whatever impact, my whole upper body begins to move instead of just my head. That's another problem with traditional blocking is if I try to do this and it skips through and hits me, again, I'm not fast enough, my head starts to whip around on a swivel, right? But if Colin throws again, and now I'm shored up by pressing on the side of my head, you'll see that he can hit me really hard, and it's not a big deal. Doesn't feel good, but at the same time, I'm now pressed against here, and it makes my whole body move as a unit. And if you start to understand this, we can look at it from this way. I can press here, I can press here. I can keep that motion and come into counters from there. Now, that being said, let's talk about what happens when we don't have gloves on. If we don't have gloves on, this changes things. Boxing gloves really spoil us in the way that maybe when Colin throws a punch, I can just block like this, and with the boxing glove, and he has a boxing glove, this is a nice cushy surface, and I can get away with that. If we're fighting bare knuckle or with MMA gloves, that's not going to work. That's going to jam my fist and knuckles into my face, which makes it all the more important to block with this inside of the forearm. If he strikes me like this, he's going to end up hitting forearm, possibly even elbow, which is going to hurt him, not me. So by understanding that, it's a good thing when you're practicing boxing and kickboxing, try blocking like this, because it then translates into self-defense blocking or lower, like smaller gloves or no gloves, and it makes things a lot easier. Now, there are instructors out there that will tell you that you can block each and every punch with your elbows and stuff like that. That's true if you're like the Marvel Flash, okay? Or is Flash DC? I don't know.
Flash is DC.
Flash is DC. I'm not as much of a comic nerd as some of the other people who train here. But at the same time, so here it goes. Watch what I'm talking about. I may catch his elbow. He throws a jab. He may catch my elbow. Fine. If he doesn't catch my elbow, it's no big deal. If he throws a right hand, same thing. That time he didn't catch my elbow, but I still blocked it, and it's still now going to damage him more than it damages me. But again, trying to specifically reach out, the same thing would be said if I'm trying to do this with elbows. Like if he goes to throw, say, this straight right hand, and then I try to aim this elbow, it's unlikely that I could miss because I'm specifically trying to aim it. Don't aim it. Put it in the path of the punch. It may or may not hit the elbow, which if it does, great, bonus for you. But if not, it's not a big deal. Same thing on the other side. Now, when you understand this blocking shell, you might call it, by using this pressure, don't think that it doesn't cover your body, because all you have to do is change the angle of your torso. So let's say Colin will come with some kind of left hook to the body. Traditionally, bang, he'll hit me here. There's almost no traditional block that's really going to deal with that, like this or like this. None of that's going to work. But if I still have this shell theory, this falls, again, he hits my forearm. All I did was take my arm and pin it to my rib cage and bend a little bit. So if you see this, bang, here, now if he comes to throw that, I'm shelled up right here. I can roll, literally roll with the punches, and then follow up with other things. So when you understand it, a little bit of pressure on the head, we're going to put gloves on and I'm going to let Colin hit me a little bit, and you can see kind of how my pressure rolls around with that. So we'll put our gloves back on, and I'm going to let Colin, I'm not going to throw anything back, but I'll let Colin, we'll go kind of slow, 50%, so you can see how I'm allowing these blocks to happen by just covering the target. So Colin, just come in with a couple of combos. So you can see how I'm making use of that. Now, it's up to you and your trainers to be able to put different combinations and counter punches and counter kicks out of that, but I think that this is a concept that you can insert into your training, and your blocking game will probably get a whole lot better. Now, I'm going to end the video and say this, that along with blocking, head movement and footwork are a huge part of defense. It's not only being able to block. You have to be able to block, move your head, and move your feet to have the greatest chance of success. So again, like all of our videos, we welcome your comments. Please tell us what you think, give us your feedback. I'm Myron from Mushin. Thanks.